Developing Our Math Minds is a series of conversations and resources about math that is intended to be a journey of growth for families over several weeks. Each week, Minds lead mathematician and product director Brandon Smith and content development manager Nina Wu will be talking about the adjustments families are making to learning at home and the opportunities this situation provides for changing our relationship with math.
Wow, so here we are. We reached the end of the school year, and I think we're all transitioning into summer.
It has been 8 weeks of engaging together, which is really exciting. But like you said, I mean, now we're going right into summer, and that usually feels like a break a little bit.
Right?
But
Usually it's a very clear shift.
yeah, but this year, like, is the shift as clear? And what happens now that many of us are already hearing from schools about what might possibly happen? But schools aren't entirely sure because they're not set up for social distancing. So we should talk a little bit about what we think summer kind of feels like,
Right.
and kind of some quick tips for parents in this moment.
Right. Just like the end of the school year was very unknown, our summer is about to be very unknown, and then the fall, the coming fall, is even more unknown. So let's first tackle the summer.
My hunch is with such a weird ending to the school year, it's quite possible that many of us are going to we feel some of that angst. We're anxious to get students back in the classroom. We do want our kids to do as well as they can. And in that anxiety, we have a tendency to fight or flight. Like we either want to avoid the feeling, and that might cause us to completely take a break from school altogether, just like throw it out the window for the summer. Let's just let school go. Or we're going to fight it, which is we're going to double down on that sort of schoolroom, classroom, paper, pencil, worksheet type feeling. And what's the balance between those? Is that really the right move or the right fit?
I think the best thing is like every family to listen to what they need for themselves, but honestly it's probably something in the middle, right? Like the idea of informal learning, and really we should all be lifelong learners and every opportunity is a learning opportunity. But also like it is summer, let's keep it light.
That's a good point. Like if we say this idea of being lifelong learners, what that means is learning can't just happen during the quote unquote 9 to 5 school day or when my math class or my English class is. Learning can happen outside the formalities of school. And I think summer becomes a great way for informal learning to feel light and airy, but also authentic. But then as a parent, how do we actually do that?
We've come up with some ideas and some tips of how to do that this summer, right?
Yeah, we're going to compile a list of our top 10 ways to experience math this summer. Definitely encourage you to check those out. But the overall tips here, whether you use any of those 10 or not, or even if you are doing summer school and it feels a little more formal, is as much as possible, change it up. Don't just do the drill or kill worksheets. Take a break from grades and exams. Allow learning to be fun and informal. And then, if at all possible, work it into activities that you're already planning to do. I think that's kind of like a nice overall mindset to have as we dive into our top 10.
Yeah, I think those are great tips.
I'm excited. Let's do it.
Great.
As we head into summer, we wanted to offer you ways to experience math without the paper, pencil, worksheet type experience. So here's our top 10 list of ways to experience math this summer.
Math and movement. You could use your body to express or explore a math idea, or you could just be dancing or moving in the world and using math as your source of inspiration to generate the movement. Either way, you can put math and movement together.
Math stories. Stories are a great way to engage together socially, often with a parent and a child. They're easy to read, they flow well, and they don't feel as dense as the typical math story problem. We've published 4 stories for you, but there's lots of stories out there. If you don't find one that quite fits, make your own.
Stories also come in lots of different formats. You could read a book, you could make a comic book, a graphic novel, you could act it out, make a skit, a screenplay, and record it. Stories also come in many genres: mystery, thriller, romantic comedies, comedies. There are so many options in the world of math and story.
Math games. Games are also fun and social experiences, and they offer a chance for goal-directed behavior and to build a strategy and make decisions before you know what to do. It also lowers the consequence. Messing up in a math game isn't as severe, for example, as messing up on a test.
There are all sorts of games you could play, like on the computer. You can continue to play ST Math, for example. There are also board games, card games, strategy games, solo games, group games. There are outdoor physical games that can get you outside and your body moving.
We've created some math games for you, but there's lots of math games out there. Or make your own.
Math and art. Math is inherently a really beautiful subject, and it's actually very visual. It uses points and lines and spaces and dots and shapes to just build up a whole visual language. And there's a bunch of visual artists who have used math tools to generate lovely works of art that you could research and recreate. You could do tessellations and patterns, and not just 2D art. You could also do three-dimensional sculptures, or you could go back to dancing. Dancing is an art form, or make a song. Math is not just like a scientific, like logical study. It's very artistic and creative, and see what you can do when you bring in creativity and the artistic side of your brain with math. I bet the results are going to be beautiful.
Math history. We often take math concepts for granted. They just kind of appear out of the textbook for free. But when you go through the history, you realize that math is a human subject. It's created and experienced by us as people. It also tends to tell the story of struggle. And it's really important for students to realize that in math class, it's not about being fast or being right immediately. For example, zero. We take it completely for granted that zero is just, it just happens. But what was the history of it? Why did people struggle so much and they actually had to use spaces instead of zero because it meant there wasn't a number? Zero wasn't really a number. It was like the absence of numbers. What does that history look like? How long did it take mathematicians to grapple with it? How long did it take for society to accept it as a whole?
So as you research or explore a question about math history, you could make a pamphlet, you could make a video, you could teach someone else in your family or a friend about it. You can make a poster, you could embody or just like act out as that mathematician or a number for the day, like role play as them. So there are lots of things you could do after you research this history of math.
STEM museums. When museums open, I think it's a great way to get out of the house and to experience math in connection with other subjects. Most of the time at a museum, you don't just have like a worksheet with several drill kill questions over and over and over again. Math, science, technology, and engineering tend to go well together, and there are multiple modalities. There's the sights, the sounds, the overall theming. Sometimes at your local children's museum, there might even be a STEM or a math pop-up section.
Math outside. We like to say that math is all around us, and it's true. Math is the thing that builds the world around us. So you could go for a math walk, for example, and just point out and explore and ask questions, just like all the math connections that you see. Now I know we all have to eat every day, and maybe it's your favorite part of the day, like it is mine, but there's a lot of opportunities for math and food. One of my favorite things to do each year is bake a pie for Pie Day, but it doesn't have to be Pie Day for you to make math-inspired food. Anytime you make a recipe, it's a great mathematical exercise, and maybe you want to double the recipe, or 1 1/3 the recipe, or maybe you have the constraint of just using a tablespoon, and then you'd have to do all those measurement conversions. But either way, making food together is a great time to explore math.
Engaging math media. Have your students check out videos by people like Vihart or James Tanton. These are really great ways for students to experience math from someone else without it just feeling like that typical lectured flow. You can also check out docuseries like Nova, for example, that has some really great math segments in there and math jokes. These all offer ways for students to engage with math beyond what we think math has to be. What we are used to in our experiences with mathematics is just a small piece of what can be.
Use math to build something. You could build all sorts of projects. You could build domes out of rolled up newspaper. What kinds of geometric shapes can you make? It's math in action. So you could make like a Rube Goldberg machine. How do you get a marble from one side of the house to the other side of the house? What kind of measurements would you have to make? There's also a lot of physics projects you could do, like throwing an egg from a building without it having to break. Marshmallow and spaghetti building projects. They're out there and they utilize math. It's a really great way to ask questions and experiment. You can bounce ideas off of each other, brainstorm, fail, and learn from it again. Hopefully, I think the end result will be really fun and you can celebrate something that you've accomplished. The building process is ripe with learning opportunities. So that was just 10 different ideas or avenues through which you could explore math together as a family this summer. What's important is that you have fun and you realize that really anything is a possibility to explore math.